Hi, I'm AnewZ and you're watching AnewZ Weekend. Here are the headlines. The investigation team will examine what kind of rocket caused the plane crash in Aktau, according to the Azerbaijani minister. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims that North Korean troops fighting in the war are suffering significant losses. NASA's Parker Solar Probe has reached a historic milestone after completing the closest approach to the Sun ever made by humanity. The team investigating the AnewZ plane crash in Aktau, which left 38 people dead, will examine what kind of rocket struck the plane, according to the Azerbaijani transport minister. Aviation experts were invited to join the inquiry.
The team investigating the AnewZ plane crash, along with aviation specialists invited for this case, will examine what kind of weapon, or rather what kind of rocket, caused the plane crash in Aktau, according to Azerbaijan's Minister of Digital Development and Transport, Rashad Nabiev. He noted that Azerbaijani and Kazakh officials have spoken to the survivors and witnesses to gain a clearer understanding of the cause.
During our visit to survivors, including those with Russian citizenship, all of them, without exception, stated that they heard 3 blast sounds when the aircraft was above Grozny city. They indicated that these sounds came from outside, suggesting there was an external impact on the plane. As a result of the blast, one of the flight attendants sustained injuries to her hand, while another woman suffered injuries to both her hand and leg. In other footage, holes are visible on the plane's wing, along with various signs of damage inside the plane, particularly in its interior parts, caused by what appears to be an impact from sharp external objects. Our investigation team, along with aviation specialists invited for this case, will now examine what kind of weapon, or rather, what kind of rocket, was used.
Touching upon other versions of what could have led to the crash of the plane, Mr. Nabiev said that some needed further investigation. However, most of them are easily refuted by the evidence at hand. For example, experts already concluded that there was external interference.
Bildiğiniz kimi kütləvi informasiya vasitələrində ilk saatlarda müxtəlif informasiyalar.
As you know, in the initial hours following the incident, various pieces of information were leaked in the media. Among the leaked claims was the suggestion that the plane may have been struck by birds. However, the initial conclusion reached by experts is that the debris found on the ground and the witness statements indicate that there was external interference. The current question is what type of weapon caused this external interference. If you paid close attention to the information provided by Kazakh officials, they referred to a claim made by the air traffic controller in Rostov that the explosion might have been caused by an oxygen cylinder. We believe this claim needs to be thoroughly investigated first, to confirm whether this information was indeed given or not. We also believe that the information originating from Rostov might have been shared by an interested party. Furthermore, as I already mentioned, the evidence contradicting this claim includes the fact that there were 3 separate explosions and that these explosion sounds were clearly external.
Azerbaijan Airlines plane flying from Baku to Grozny tragically crashed near Aktau, Kazakhstan on December 25th. The crash led to the death of 38 people, including both pilots, and left 29 passengers injured. While the cause was initially unclear, preliminary investigations now strongly suggest the involvement of a surface-to-air missile.
The courage and heroism of the Baku-Grozny flight crew saved the lives of more than 20 people. Stewardess and passenger took us through the last minutes of the tragic flight.
There were 2 explosions outside the plane and shrapnel fell into the plane's cabin. These are the words of Aydan Rahimli. She is a stewardess of Azerbaijani Airlines, one of the survivors of Baku-Grozny flight.
Təyyarə normalda heç bir yəni nasazlıq yox idi. Təyyarə gedirdi.
The plane was in good condition. There was no malfunction. It attempted to land at Grozny Airport once, but it didn't succeed. It tried a second time, but again, it was unsuccessful. On the third attempt, the plane was struck from the left side. At that moment, oxygen masks dropped down.
Artıq zərbə dəydi təyyarəyə sol tərəfdən.
After the explosion, chaos engulfed the plane cabin and the passengers panicked. Stewardess Aydan tried her best to calm them, but soon her fellow flight attendant got wounded.
Sərnişinləri çalışırdıq,
We were trying to calm the passengers and telling them not to unfasten their seatbelts. Then, we heard the sound of an explosion, and a second strike occurred. After the second strike, our flight attendant, Mr. Zulfagar, was injured in the arm. I provided first aid and gave him water. Those moments were very stressful because he could have lost a lot of blood, and it was necessary to stop the bleeding.
Mən ilk yardım göstərdim, su verdim.
And that is when emergency landing was announced by pilots, and lead flight attendant Hökümet started to give instructions to cabin crew and passengers.
Bəli, nə etmək bilirəm, normal olacaq.
Lead stewardess asked, "Do you know what to do as a first aid?" And I said yes. She said, "Okay, then we are making an emergency landing, but it should have been a normal emergency landing. We did not know what's going to happen." Ms. Hokuma explained to the passengers all the necessary information about the situation. She said, "Everything is going to be fine."
Kəmərləri bağlayın, hər şey yaxşı olacaq, Hökümə xanım deyirdi.
Aydan says she was at the very back of the plane, at the place of service of flight attendants. In the last minutes, she only saw the passengers who were in the brace position, according to emergency landing rules.
Faciəli vamitlər ən axırda oldu.
The plane continued to fly, searching for a place to land. It wasn't working. It kept ascending and descending. The most tragic moments were at the very end. At that moment, the plane started rapidly descending. We were all seated, removed the mask, and tightened our seatbelts. I lowered my head and sat in the brace position. The plane was still descending. Then I was thrown to the right, then to the left. The seatbelt held me in place. When I opened my eyes, the plane was upside down.
Getmişdi. Baş ayaq elə bir getmişdi. Mən də elə qalmışdım.
Seatbelts fastened stewardess to her seat and she stayed there until very end. Aydan Rahimli says they did not know where they landed. When she got out of plane, people were already there to help, and it was then Aydan heard that they are in Aktau, Kazakhstan. Stewardess of Azal says it is a miracle that half of the people survived the crash. One of these survivors already recorded his last-minute prayers. Passenger Supankul Rahimov said he had begun to recite prayers and prepare for the end after hearing the bang.
I wasn't even sure that I would stay alive. I already thought that it was all over. After the bang, I already got my mindset that something bad would happen now, because it was clear that the plane had received damage. I was conscious when I felt the impact. I was being thrown back and forth. It all lasted for a few seconds, and then silence. Everything was quiet, and I realized that was it. We had landed.
Eventually, Baku-Grozny flight had landed. For some, it was the last destination, while for the others, Aktau will be a place of rebirth to the second life.
The Azerbaijan State Civil Aviation Agency has announced the cancellation of flights to several Russian cities. The decision comes in light of the investigation into the Azal plane crash and ongoing flight safety concerns.
Azerbaijan State Civil Aviation Agency cancels flights to several Russian cities, including Mineralny Vody, Sochi, Volgograd, Ufa, Samara, Grozny, Makhachkala, Saratov, Nizhny Novgorod, and Vladikavkaz. The decision has been made taking into account the preliminary results of the investigation into the crash of the Embraer 190 aircraft of Azerbaijan Airlines flight J28243 Baku-Grozny due to physical and technical external interference. Also earlier, Azerbaijan Airlines informed that the captain of Azerbaijan Airlines flight J28717, operating en route Baku-Mineralny Vody, made the decision to return to the airport without leaving Baku airspace immediately after takeoff and receiving a notice to airmen about the closure of the airspace over Makhachkala.
The crash of the Azov Flight 8243 is another devastating reminder of the risks posed to civilian aviation in conflict zones. As investigators work to unravel the truth of the tragedy, the spotlight is now on the broader implications for aviation safety and regional stability.
On December 25, 2024, Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243, an Embraer 190 en route from Baku to Grozny, tragically crashed near Aktau, Kazakhstan. The accident claimed 38 lives, including both pilots, and left 29 passengers injured. The crash, initially surrounded by uncertainty, has now taken a significant turn as the preliminary investigation strongly suggests the involvement of a surface-to-air missile. The flight departed from Baku at 7:55 local time. Due to dense fog at Grozny Airport, the plane was redirected. Reports from the flight's final moments indicate GPS interference near Grozny, a phenomenon previously documented in the region. The aircraft diverted towards Aktau, Kazakhstan, but disappeared from radar at 8:40. It reappeared later, showing erratic altitude and speed changes before attempting an emergency landing near Aktau around 11:30. According to an AnewZ exclusive, the preliminary investigation confirms that Flight 8243 was likely hit by SAM during its flight over the North Caucasus. Expert analysis and multiple sources suggest shrapnel-like damage on the fuselage, consistent with an air defense missile strike. This conclusion aligns with ongoing regional tensions and heightened Russian military activity due to Ukrainian drone incursions. Matt Borey, Chief Intelligence Officer at Osprey Flight Solutions, told the Wall Street Journal, "Video of the wreckage and the circumstances around the airspace security environment in southwest Russia indicates the possibility the aircraft was hit by some form of anti-aircraft fire." Justin Crump from Zipline, a risk advisory company, told the BBC Radio 4, "It looks very much like the detonation of an air defense missile to the rear and to the left of the aircraft, if you look at the pattern of shrapnel that we see." Military expert Yan Matveyev told Euronews that without serious evidence, it is difficult to assume anything other than an anti-aircraft missile caused the attack. He noted the damage suggests fragments from Pantsir S-1 missile or a similar system with small warheads. Mark Z of OPS Group stated that analysis of the plane's fragments strongly indicates a surface-to-air missile strike, estimating the likelihood at 99%. Kazakhstan is leading the investigation with international support. The aircraft's black box has been recovered and its data is being analyzed. While the Kremlin has cautioned against premature speculation, aviation analysts stress the need for transparency. A spokesperson for Kazakhstan's aviation told earlier, "We are working closely with international partners to ensure that the cause of this crash is identified. Every effort is being made to analyze the black box data and other evidence collected from the crash site." Azerbaijani Minister of Digital Development and Transport Rashad Nabiev, on his part, has said that the plane crash was seemingly caused by what appears to be an external impact and that the investigation team, along with aviation specialists invited for this case, will examine what kind of weapon, or rather, what kind of rocket was used. The crash has sparked global concern. Azerbaijan declared a day of mourning, with President Ilham Aliyev extending condolences to the victims' families. Airlines such as El Al have since reviewed their routes over Russian airspace, underscoring the broader implications for aviation safety. As the investigation progresses, the emerging evidence overwhelmingly supports the theory of SAM strike, potentially due to misidentification amidst regional tensions. AnewZ continues to monitor the situation, providing expert insights and updates on this developing story.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says North Korean troops fighting in Russia's Kursk region are encountering heavy losses. Zelensky also urges China to pressure North Korea over its involvement in European battles.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is sending North Korean troops into battle with minimum protection. This statement comes as Zelensky claims heavy losses on North Korean soldiers fighting in Russia's Kursk region.
There were also details regarding Kursk region, battles involving North Korean soldiers. Their losses are significant, very significant. We see that neither the Russian military nor the North Korean overseers have any interest in ensuring the survival of these North Koreans. Everything is set up so that it is impossible for us to capture them. There are instances where they are executed by their own forces. Russians send them into assaults with minimal protection.
Zelensky also calls on China to use its influence to keep North Korea from participating in European battles.
The Korean people shouldn't lose their lives in battles in Europe. This is something that Korea's neighbors, including China, can influence. If China is sincere in its statements that the war should not expand, then it needs to exert appropriate pressure on Pyongyang.
Zelensky's statements concerning North Korea's losses echo remarks by South Korean Member of Parliament Lee Song-kun last week, who says North Korean troops are unfamiliar with drone warfare and have been placed in open terrain.
National Intelligence Service reported that there have been at least 100 deaths of North Korean troops, and the injured are approaching 1,000. The National Intelligence Service said that the heavy losses are attributed to North Korean troops' lack of experience in drone warfare, and they were mobilized as frontline stormtroops in open terrain, which they are unfamiliar with.
Meanwhile, North Korea says in a statement that its military alliance with Russia is proving very effective in deterring the United States. However, the statement made no mention of its involvement in the war in Ukraine or the heavy casualties that its troops have taken in combat in the Kursk region. Ukrainian and Western intelligence reports say about 12,000 North Korean troops have been deployed in Kursk. Earlier this week, Zelensky says more than 3,000 of them have either been killed or wounded.
The United Nations has warned of escalating risks in Syria, with the special envoy stressing the urgent need for inclusive governance and ceasefire efforts. Meanwhile, rebel-led authorities report deadly clashes with pro-Assad forces near Tartus port city.
At the United Nations, Associate Spokesperson Stephanie Tremblay detailed the Security Council's discussions on Syria, highlighting Special Envoy Geir Pedersen's remarks.
He reiterated to members of the Security Council this morning that the key principles of Security Council Resolution 2254 have wide consensus. The transition there should be Syrian-led and owned, ensuring credible, inclusive, and non-sectarian governance, including also constitutional reform, the holding of free and fair election, and the meaningful participation of women.
Tremblay also conveyed Pedersen's deep concerns over potential escalations and called for the immediate cessation of aggression.
Syria's sovereignty, its territorial unity and integrity must be restored, and all acts of aggression must cease immediately.
On the ground, Syria's new rebel-led authorities report that 14 Interior Ministry troops loyal to ousted President Bashar al-Assad were killed near Tartus, with 10 others wounded. The ambush marks an unexpected escalation in Syria, raising fears of further destabilization.
The United Nations Security Council authorized the African Union's support and stabilization mission in Somalia. This mission will replace the larger African Union anti-terrorism operation starting January 1, 2025. The United States abstained from the UN Security Council vote, citing financial concerns, while the remaining 14 Council members voted in favor of the resolution. Somalia's security has been underwritten by foreign resources since the start of the conflict with Ethiopia in 2006, which gave rise to an insurgency, killing thousands of people in the process. In business and economy news, holiday sales in the U.S. beat expectations this year, driven by steep discounts and last-minute shopping. Retailers, however, had to get creative to cater to cautious consumers.
The U.S. holiday shopping season saw a 3.8% increase in sales from November 1st to December 24th compared to last year, according to MasterCard Spending Pulse. This rise surpassed earlier projections, showcasing consumer resilience despite stubborn inflation and high interest rates. Retailers described shoppers as selective and conservative, prompting widespread discounts to drive sales. Walmart extended its rollbacks, and Target leaned on promotions to keep customers engaged. Dollar General noted its fourth quarter profits could take a hit due to heavy discounting, while Kroger and Five Below followed suit with price cuts to remain competitive. Online shopping continued to grow at double the pace of physical store sales, underscoring the shift towards digital-first shopping. To meet consumer demands, retailers integrated generative AI for better customer service and refined curbside pickup and delivery options, ensuring a smoother holiday shopping experience.
This holiday season, many Russians are tightening their belts as inflation exceeds 9%, pushing up the prices of everyday goods. Wage increases in some sectors have not kept pace with the soaring costs of food, utilities, and everyday spending.
As Russia's economic struggles continue under the weight of sanctions and the ongoing war, prices for staples like butter, potatoes, and chicken have risen sharply, with some items becoming up to 30% more expensive in just the past few months. Meanwhile, the ruble remains under pressure, now trading at around 105 rubles to the dollar, making imported goods even pricier. In Omsk, prices have risen sharply, and residents highlight that the amount of products you could buy for $20 is drastically different this year.
Prices have noticeably increased, incomes are sufficient, but when you go to the store, you realize that with 2,000 rubles, you used to be able to buy a lot more.
Residents in Yekaterinburg acknowledge the rising costs but are adjusting to their new reality.
Everything got more expensive. Everybody knows everything, but everything is available. People try to live by their means. Prices are rising. Everything's become more expensive. We cannot influence it. We just live with it and adapt.
In St. Petersburg, even the cost of Christmas trees has become a luxury for many.
There are people that need a tree who don't even ask the price. They just buy one. And there are people who, even when we offer discounts, they say they can't afford it. I wish everyone season's greetings, all the best, and that next year, everyone can afford a tree.
In Moscow, ordinary goods like bread have seen prices nearly double, with a loaf now costing half of the dollar compared to 20 cents earlier this year.
Public utilities are getting more expensive, taxes are getting higher. It's very noticeable. When you go to the shop, a loaf of bread that once cost 20 rubles now costs 50 rubles. Such things are very well noticed.
Despite real wage growth in sectors like defense and technology, inflation has far outpaced income increases, with prices expected to end the year at 9.8%. Projections suggest inflation will peak in April 2025 before starting to decrease. While the central bank has kept interest rates high at 21%, borrowing costs remain elevated, with mortgage rates reaching as high as 30%, cooling demand in the housing market. With sanctions continuing to limit access to foreign goods and services, Russia's economy remains under significant strain, and the financial challenges for its citizens look set to persist into the new year.
NASA's Parker Solar Probe has reached a historic milestone after it completed the closest approach to the Sun ever made. The mission promises to unlock new secrets about our closest star.
NASA's Parker Solar Probe has achieved a groundbreaking milestone, making humanity's closest approach to the Sun yet. The probe flew just 3.8 million miles from the Sun's surface, entering the corona, the Sun's outer atmosphere. NASA confirmed the spacecraft's success with the green beacon signal, proving its safe passage through the extreme conditions. Dr. Joe Westlake, NASA's heliophysics director, described the achievement as historic.
Today we got back very late at night, last night about 11:50 p.m. Eastern time. We got back a green beacon from the Parker Solar Probe spacecraft indicating that it successfully completed humanity's closest approach to a star, closest ever flyby to the Sun. And really just an amazing achievement. We were able to actually fly through the upper atmosphere, the corona of the Sun, which is just an amazing thing if you think about it.
Launched in 2018, the Parker probe uses Venus gravity to tighten its orbit. Traveling at an astonishing 400,000 miles per hour, it endures temperatures up to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Westlake added that the spacecraft's prime mission is nearing completion, but its stable orbit ensures extended study.
So we're getting towards the end of its prime mission. The end of its prime mission happens towards the end of this year. But then also, as the solar maximum sort of ramps down, as we continue to get activity off of the Sun, we're going to be wanting to do more and more flybys and hopefully capture some real unique events.
NASA expects detailed data from this historic flyby to begin arriving by January 1st, opening new doors in our understanding of the Sun.
That's all we have for now from Baku. Thank you for tuning in and keep watching AnewZ.